Welcome to Focus on Claims.
All right, welcome to another episode of Focus on Claims, and today I have a special guest, Dan Amato of Alpha Appraisal. Dan, glad to have you on today.
Hey, Ernie. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you know what, Dan? This is going to be a fun one because the story about Dan goes back. He worked for ACD. He worked for ACD for over 2 years, and then he took that entrepreneurial leap. And I love these entrepreneurial stories. And I'm going to let you, Dan, tell our audience. I think it's going to be fun for appraisers out there to get some tips on how they can make their business better. But Dan, go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you got in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. ACD has been an integral part. Would not be here if not for ACD. Essentially, I moved from New York to California shortly after I graduated college. I was looking to break into a different industry, and it just didn't end up being all it was chalked up to be. So I was here in California without a career. Um, so I went to a recruiter who placed me with ACD based on my customer service experience. If you know me, that might be a little surprising. But yes, I was very well versed in the industry of customer service. Um, so I was really just looking for, I needed something. I was here to support myself without a job. And this, the way it was described to me from the recruiter sounded pretty interesting. So I got in thinking thinking it was actually going to be more of a tech thing. And it has certainly evolved as with clarity and the growth of the platform. But I took the position as a trial period. I think it was like 2 months worth.
Yeah, I think it was like a 2 month thing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, yeah. So getting in, I was interviewed with Ken, and Ken, I think, is a great kind of front of house kind of guy. He welcomes me, made me feel at home, made me feel comfortable during the process, and um, really just, that's what you're looking for when you're starting something new. You're looking for a comfortable environment where, you're not going to be the focal point of the operation. You're
Yeah,
there
you
to
didn't
learn.
realize you're getting claims, though, did you? You didn't know what it was going to be about.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll get to this a little later, but Ken's not quite the kind of guy that when you think of a claims guy that you picture. Um, but yeah, it was very interesting. It was a warm environment in the office. Going into work every day was not only exciting, but every day I felt like I was going to learn something more. Um, so I completed the trial period and was hired on as a customer service rep. Um, so as a CCA, you're answering a lot of phone calls. You're sorting the calls to the correct party. So there are a lot of scenarios there where you're answering a call that you might not know how to field as
Right.
somebody that's brand new to the industry. So maybe we're segmenting into the next section here, but taking those calls and not being able to respond or sort them out in the proper way is not a good feeling. So one thing that really drove me to take an interest in what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
again, this is all very new to me, was to learn about what I'm actually doing. So looking into the estimates, looking at the photos, learning the process from start to front to finish, all things that really became like it became important that they were understood.
Even adjusters out there a lot of times may not know, the details of what it takes to repair a car, and it may not be their job in general, but like what you were saying is you wanted to learn more about that, so you would actually, instead of just doing the customer service part of it, you're actually understanding the reasons behind things.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing what it is that you're doing. So as a customer service rep, if you're just getting the call and you're sorting it to the appropriate party, that's the job.
Mm-hmm.
But the next step up is to be able to do the job that they're asking you to sort it to.
Yeah.
And then, if you're sorting these calls, a lot of times people are on the phone. So, being sent to a voicemail is not something that is really attractive when you're trying to reach somebody. So if they have you on the phone and you're able to help them, that makes you that much more valuable.
Exactly. So then you started to take on that interest. I remember you wanted to go get some classes. You wanted to do some more and learn a lot. And I think that was really, you were such a self starter on that. And I think tell the audience how you kind of went into that path to do that.
Well, yeah. So to be an independent, you absolutely need to be a self-starter. It is on you to support yourself. If you don't, you will learn very fast that you cannot survive. But being a self-starter it's kind of something I've had since I was a kid. It started with sports,
Hmm.
taking a leadership role amongst your peers on the football field or the basketball court, whatever it is. I think it's important and integral in development in the career path that you have some sort of leadership and accountability for yourself entering this field. Um, and then again, just the feeling of, for me personally, I didn't feel comfortable when I would take a call
Hmm.
from somebody that was, maybe been an adjuster for 40 years.
Right.
These are career jobs too. That is just saying something casually that to me is a foreign language. So to start looking into things like that and to figure out what things mean, for example, maybe exposing myself a little bit, but I didn't really know what tire treads were
Hmm.
coming into this. So I had somebody asking me why was there no betterment applied because there was tire tread photos. And this is, again, I was not an auditor at this point. I was a customer
Yeah.
service rep. Um, I didn't know how to answer the question because I didn't know what they were talking about. So experiences like that kind of drove me to learn more and more and more about it. And as I started to get into it,
Hmm.
it's just you keep open every which way you go, you open another door and there's more.
What was the first class you did take, if you remember correctly?
The
What was that?
first class was the iCar Platinum, and
Okay.
that was the online class. That was I think it was, I've been taking the interest in all this stuff and it
Hmm.
was noticed, which also was important to me that my hard work and effort was being noticed. So when the opportunity was provided to me, yeah, of course I'd like to learn more about what I'm doing. You're going to give me this opportunity. Yes, I'll take it. So it was the iCar Platinum course, and it was just the initial course that you take to get
Right.
the certification, and then you're expected to maintain it on your own. So getting that, well, first of all, getting that, it was an accomplishment for me in an
Yeah.
industry that I had just broken into. So at this point, I'm now being nurtured along a path that I don't really have any expectations on. So the fact that it's succeeding is great. I'm all in on it. So taking the class and then the fact that I was able to take it at home on my laptop on my free time, I really started to feel like I was buying into the industry.
Hmm.
Um, so doing that on my free time, it made it seem all that more interesting, and it was interesting. It's the stuff that I'm, you know, it is the crucial part of the path that I'm on. So learning all this stuff, finally starting to understand what some of these things that were being asked to me were that I couldn't answer at the time, saying that aha moment, like, this is what he was talking about. Getting that validation started to feel great. It started to feel like I was moving in the right direction on the path. So that was the start. Shortly after I finished that is when ACD sent me to Vail for the estimating program.
Right.
So this was the auto estimating for standard auto, and this was the 2 week program.
Hmm.
So at this time I think I was 25, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, Going on a work trip, away for 2 weeks is a cool concept. I was very interested in it when it was first talked about. I didn't really expect it to be serious. It's just, I've never been in a position where a company is going to do that for I have the jobs that I had been manual labor, physical labor,
Hmm.
customer service. I managed weddings for a few years. Um, So to be part of a company that was investing in me felt really, really good. And now at this point, I like what I'm doing. I'm learning about it. I'm starting to
And you
understand.
were learning very fast too, I remember. You were catching on quick. Did you go to the heavy equipment training as well?
I did
That's
that.
right.
That came about a year later. That was at the same program with Vail,
Hmm.
which with what Vail offers is incredible. And it's something that I never would have known existed, but it's a state-of-the-art facility where they have salvaged cars where they can show hands-on what it is that you're looking at, how it's
Yeah.
repaired, what constitutes replace, exactly where weld cuts are made, section procedures. They've got the frame racks, they've got the alignment machines, they've got everything set up in a warehouse, right with classrooms right next door to it.
Hmm.
So essentially, you're going back and forth between the classroom and the warehouse, and they're training you on your software of choice, which for me was Mitchell,
Hmm.
on how to use the software. So now going into that first program, I did not know how to use Mitchell, or CCC. I had not used.
So
I
they would
just
teach you in whatever software you were
Yeah,
going to
you
use.
you
Okay.
select before you go. You select which one you'd
Okay.
prefer to be trained in. And I had just broken into Mitchell, I guess. So um, it was really big that they taught us how to use the software, at least to the point where I
Mhm.
could now do it on my own, or I wouldn't need, to ask for help every time I got stuck. Back when Robert was around, I used to always feel like I was annoying him because he was known as the Mitchell Wizard, and I would
Yeah.
message him 2 to 3 times a day asking for help with my software preferences or something like that. Um, and there's another instance there where accountability, I didn't want to be that little youngster that kept asking Robert for help every time I got stuck. So taking it upon myself to dig into the material further to understand it myself so I didn't have to ask for help is really kind of a theme here in terms of
Yeah, you're
advancement.
taking the initiative. So from my perspective, you were accelerating through your growth in this. You were becoming a person that understood the estimating, you understood the repair process, you really accelerated yourself through this. And then you came to me and said you're leaving, man. And I was like, whoa, this guy's out of here. He's leaving. I was bummed, but I was happy for you. You know why? Because you had that entrepreneurial leap. So tell people how from learning all this, what it felt like when you had that drive to go out there and start your own company.
So I did have a little bit of know-how under my belt, but at this point, yeah, I had audited, I had answered the phones. I have started to learn this side of the industry inside and out. So
Mm-hmm.
now, really, the only thing I hadn't done was the field inspection, and these are the things that I'm reviewing now. Um, so getting out there and doing it for myself, just it kind of became something that I had to do. It, it's the direction that I was moving, and it was the next step.
When you took
Um,
that step and started your own business, had you talked to some of the independents out there ahead of time and asked them how they got going? Did you get any advice from anybody? Or
I did. I reached out to Tony Wagner, who was in San Diego. I talked to him, just kind of asked him about how
Mhm.
is it sustainable in San Diego? How much do you have to work? Are you working all the time? And he told me exactly what I would tell anyone now is that it's a hustle. You can do as good as you push yourself. If you break into the industry and with a good product, people will notice it. And if
Yeah.
you're able to sustain that, you'll get the work.
Yep.
Um, there's a lot of different tiers of product, I think. There's a lot of people that send in the minimum. They send in 10 photos, uncentered, very minimal summary
Bare
report.
bones, not with any thought really put into it, you're saying.
Yeah, just I'm just sending this in. I went and did my job. Here's your estimate. There's a lot of people out there that try that are overwhelmed, that get a lot of work, and regional areas are a big factor
Mhm.
in that. But so that does account for some of it. But then there is that top tier where I remembered as an auditor, like the appraisers that I would get their assignments and say, this is what I want to do. And then I would see the ones that it was just like, do you even remember inspecting this car and seeing the estimate
So
that was
so
written?
really you saw the appraisers, you were able to identify these are the people that are doing what you want to do, that level of quality, the tier of like top tier, they care
Yeah,
about what
being
they're
able
doing,
to
the product.
gauge the product that you want, being able to gauge the product that you feel you can offer versus what's out there.
What would you say your advice would be going out there because you have no reputation. You
Yeah.
knew ACD, but nobody else knew you. How would you go out there and what did you do and how would you go out there to get your reputation and build that?
So the first thing you need to do is just calculate what it is that you need to make to survive, and then break that down into how many claims or how many cars you need to see per week, and just figure out, you know is that realistic?
Mm-hmm.
If it is, then you need to market yourself. So marketing yourself is as simple as searching independent appraisal networks,
Mm-hmm.
whatever interface you use.
Okay.
There are several big players in the industry. There are several second tier, they're there, they have work, but they're not the big guys. And then
Yeah.
there are small ones here and there that are good, sustainable clients. So breaking into the industry, you really want to just put yourself out there. You don't know who is going to pick up on you first. When I first started, I had the benefit of course, kind of knowing the market with ACD, but I didn't think that was enough to sustain myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I broke into a smaller network that I had just heard about from an appraiser. He'd given me a recommendation. I gave them a shot, and they were able to provide me semi-consistent work. So
Okay.
now at this point, that's a second client. So that is really big, is just having more than one client. I think it's even a requirement for most companies, is to show proof of income from another where, or just proof of marketing at least. Um, so getting that second client was really big, because then it made me feel like, okay, I'm doing this. And then, I was confident in myself at this point. I think that most people that come from IAPath or places like that will probably have a similar level of confidence to what I had,
Mm-hmm.
at least in terms of knowing what I was looking at. um, so it comes back to providing the best products that you can. What my second client noticed about me was that I wrote very detailed estimates. I
Yeah.
I put my information lines in there. I explained everything in my summary, and then I took a lot of photos. Quite honestly, what really helped me break into my first two secondary clients was that I took a lot of photos.
So you're saying the detail of your photos was really what kind of impressed that second client. They saw that you went above and beyond and not just the bare minimum. Was that kind of what caught their attention?
Yeah, exactly. So I had submitted. It ended up being a total loss, but it was a higher caliber vehicle that was going to be a high total loss settlement. I took a lot of photos of the damage, but then I took a lot of photos of the options. And then when I completed the valuation, I had added a lot of non-standard options to the
Yeah.
valuation. So the auditor that was reviewing it looked at all my photos, and then the valuation, and called me to say good job, which quite honestly is not a call that we get a lot in the industry. A lot of times it's someone's upset. So getting that call
Yeah.
was nice. And just knowing that you're able to produce that, taking a ton of photos costs you nothing. Everything's done digitally these days. I'm sure
I know.
90% of the appraisers are using their phone to take the photos. So it's all digital space. It costs you nothing, and it's just an extra step. That helps people a lot. And I will say myself, working a lot of desk files, having more photos, you might not even understand the photo that you're taking when you take it. But when I'm looking at it and I'm zooming around the photo to see things that I need to see,
Yeah.
the more angles, the more areas that I have, the better. So
So take that tip from Dan Amato right here. Take a lot of photographs if you're an appraiser out there. It will help you. And we say this all the time, and Dan's, agreeing with this here, is that will help you when you need to go back and look at something and realize, hey, you know what was the, what was on that, the dashboard? What was here? What was the condition of something? And a lot of times I think when appraisers cut corners, they miss some key options. I mean, is that a thing you've seen before, that people miss a lot of options sometimes?
Yeah. So a lot of times, so piggybacking off that, the number one thing that I see is F-150 is the fender trim. This is missed all the time. It breaks down the trim level of the F-150, which does have implications, especially in total loss. So a lot of times, if you get those four corners and you're too far away, even if you zoom in, you can't tell what it is. And it's much better to have the correct trim level than to be guessing and be wrong. So there are things that are necessary all over the car. When I write my estimates from the field, I write them from my photos. Of course, I remember a lot of the damage, but the actual confirmation, the open items are basically determined from my photos. When I'm sitting here writing the estimate, I'm going through my photos, recalling the inspection, but then also maybe seeing things that I didn't see at the time of the inspection. If you're looking at front inner structure damage or suspension, you might catch something in your photo that you didn't see in the reference of your original inspection. So it's just it takes nothing to take more photos, and it benefits everybody to do it. You can always delete them after.
But yeah, I think over document, it's better to over document than under document. I mean, I think any client out there is going to be appreciative of great documentation. What's your thoughts on like file notes, or I should say summary notes? How do you do that? And what do you think in the industry is key, describing what you see to an adjuster?
So I think summary notes are very important. And I think if everybody utilized it the proper way, we could get rid of a lot of unnecessary phone calls and voicemails. When I complete my file, we write the summary. I write, it's not a template. I've just written it so many times so that it comes out like a template, but I explain the basic admin stuff of the file.
Right.
When I inspected it, who was present, whether it's repairable or total loss. I get into the details of the inspection and the damage. If there's anything noteworthy in regards to how the customer was acting, that's where you note it. You explain the damages. You say, this, and this needs replace, which warrants blend of this and this. I expect that there will be damages here. And you explain all of that to the person that it matters to. This is what I see a lot as an auditor. I would get a lot of these, just the notes would just say inspected. And
What would
then,
you say to an appraiser out there that says, I don't want to write notes. My estimate and my photos tell the story. I don't want to do it.
well, that may be the case, but more than likely you're just not going to get to work, because there is somebody out there that will write that summary, that even if they're not as experienced or better than you right now, if they keep doing it that way, they will grow and be recognized for
Yeah,
it.
and my opinion on that, I'll throw my 2 cents in, is that you have to realize the person on the other end, the adjuster, may not know the repair process. They just need that extra information to be able to explain it to maybe a manager or somebody that, may not know the repair process. So I think it's helping somebody explain it in a way so it's digestible, and it's more than somebody who doesn't really know the process. They can explain it to somebody, that may be outside of a material damage sector.
Yeah. And you never know what is going to end up in a subrogation packet. Now, how many reviews are completed from subrogation audits where they are just saying no documentation received, nothing provided, no
Right.
explanation? If it's in there, that is going to aid your client to the max. If
Yeah.
it's explained and they have it, if that winds up in the subrogation packet, it's very useful.
Yeah, I agree with you on that 100%. So it sounds to me like the keys to your success out there really is about being detail oriented, taking a lot of photographs. You got good summaries out there, and you're really fulfilling the job of what a client is hiring you to do. Um, if I had to break it down, just to distill it to some key tips, some key points, a new appraiser in the industry, they just graduated from a course, or maybe you're a body shop technician, or work at a collision repair facility, and you're going out to start your own independent appraisal business. What are some like key points you would say right now? You got to do these things if you want to be, like you said, top tier. You want to be one of the best. What do you got to do?
the first thing I would say is the best experience that you can get is hands-on experience. Like anything, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So just putting yourself in the day-to-day, learning as you go, and allowing yourself that, introductory period where you're not going to understand anything, but you need to learn on the fly. So just putting yourself in the situation to get the experience. Number two is kind of a build on number one, is to challenge yourself. Put yourself in positions where you are not comfortable. Any specialist writes their first estimate of that specialty at some point. I write a lot of classic cars. I remember my first classic car estimate. I was nervous. I didn't really, non-database. That meant something totally different to me then than it does now. But you have to start somewhere. So putting yourself in that position is how you learn. The next one, be on time. It's a little thing, and the kind of general urban myth of the industry is that the appraiser is always late, the insurance guy is always late. I can't tell you how many times my inspection has started off on the right foot because I'm there exactly when I say I'm going to be.
Being punctual then, right on time.
Yeah. It sets a good expectation with the customer. It helps your day move forward as efficiently as it could. It leaves you the most time that you have to complete your work, which would be 3A, complete your estimates the same day as your inspection when they're fresh in your mind, when time is pertinent, do it the same day. Being on time, important, often overlooked, small thing, but definitely makes a difference. The next one is kind of the extra mile little things. Sometimes you need to take the steps to ensure that your client's going to get the best product. You cannot always hold the network responsible for creating something that is easy to read or to navigate or to give all the information. So any steps that you can take yourself to do that ultimately make your product look better. So little things like labeling your photos. When you print something to PDF, change it to a custom that prints only the pages that you need rather than a 12-page document for one page of information that you need. Rename the document before you upload it. You right click on it and you rename the PDF, whatever it needs to be, in a nice organized fashion. Upload it. That way, whoever's scanning those files, if they need to find, it's right there, it's labeled. Rather than just XYZJ_8910. Labeling the file, I think, is just a nice little extra.
Straighten that organization to it.
Yeah.
This makes sense.
And then thank your clients. It takes nothing to say, thank you for this assignment at the end of any summary that you write. It's meaningful. They're paying you. It's your income. So thanking them for the opportunity is, I think, a cordial and a nice thing to do, a nice little touch. And then lastly, the final is to just be confident in yourself. It's going to take a while if you're just breaking in. You might know a ton about cars already. You might have worked in a shop and you're becoming an appraiser, whatever your background is. You can have all that information, but then starting actually doing it for yourself, it's a whole different ballgame. It's like watching a baseball game on TV and then going up to bat. It's totally different. So even though you have a lot of the foundational knowledge, it's going to start presenting itself in different ways. You're going to have to start dealing with different situations that you might not have ever come across. There are different factors that are coming in now. So it's going to be a tough road, but don't let it deter you. Don't let it discourage you. There is a learning curve. Trust the process.
Points.
I think really that's what separates you outside of the little things, is just your willingness to stand up for yourself, the client, rather than if you're willing to stand up to a pushy shop, or if you can explain to the adjuster exactly what they need to hear adequately, that is really what builds trust.
Those are some really good points. And Dan, as we're getting ready to close here, I want to hit a couple topics that are kind of something I see all the time, and I'd like you to address this to appraisers out there. They want to know what they can do. And the first thing is appraisers who disappear. What's your advice to those? See, when I say disappear, it's like you give assignments out to appraisers, and then it just there's no status, no communication, no appointment set. Do you think that's maybe because of it's a scheduling issue? They have too many files, maybe, and they take on too much and get overwhelmed. Or what's your thoughts on how to not go dark on this thing and just disappear? Keep people informed.
It's hard for me to imagine any situation where going dark is completely dark is an option. If you're going to be successful, you need to be accountable. And responding to clients that are offering and giving you work is part of being accountable.
Yep.
So no matter the scenario, I don't see any situation where going completely dark is acceptable.
Let's say you're getting a hail loss, or you're doing a multi-car loss, 20 to 30 claims, maybe at one location or just a lot in one area. How could an appraiser effectively manage their time in a situation like that?
Well, I mean, if you have that much work and you're aware that you need to be shut off, make the phone call to the network. You don't get in that network without speaking to somebody there. So
Right.
call them and say, hey, I'm sorry about this. I really am, but I can't take this work. I'm tied down over here. And that is much better for the insurance company and the network to reassign it at that time rather than wait 10 days for the same thing. So make the call, let the appropriate parties know,
Mm-hmm.
and then get to work. This is what you need to do. This is what it takes to be an independent appraiser. You're not going to work traditional business hours all the time. You're going to have to work late. You're going to have to work weekends. You have to do what it takes to get the job done. It's not about how long you do it. It's about what gets done. So this is a big difference from working in an office, is that the job's not done until it's done. And that could take you 4 hours. It could take you 12.
So organization's a key to this as well.
Yeah. But back to going ghost. Yeah, I guess it would most likely be one because they're overwhelmed due to catastrophe. There are, I do remember there are some big appraisal companies out there that are in, much needed areas that just get insane amounts of work. That is probably an oddity there, an outlier. But that does account for just an appraisal network being too big to, too busy to handle all the work. But I think it comes down to being overwhelmed with the actual work. When you have, when I worked hail in Colorado in 2018. I went and covered that storm, and I was not really prepared for it, but I really noticed that I needed more than one person there, because doing all aspects of the job, answering the phones, inspecting the vehicle, writing the estimates. When you're working catastrophe like that, there's not enough time. Things get lost in translation. I was only working for one network for that storm, and I was in over my head. I had 100 claims, and my phone was ringing left and right, and I just couldn't answer the phone fast enough. I was trying to answer as many as I could, but it was overwhelming. But I still found the time to status my files or to communicate with the rep at that network saying, there's always going to be a 5-minute break in the day.
Right.
If you have to sacrifice it on your lunch break to text somebody or to make a phone call, that's what it takes to be an independent rather than a salaried employee.
What did you do though to make contact with owners, even though there might be a little bit of a time lapse until you're able to see a vehicle in a big cat event? How did you organize that?
So if they're part of the catastrophe, they understand what's going on. If you're able to contact the customer and set expectations, say, hey, listen, I have your assignment. I'm aware of it. I'm pretty booked up for the next 2 to 3 days. Are you available from X day after that? and then kind of, coordinate with them, because it's not all about you, but it's also not all about them. I do kind of like to steer them to the appointments that would work best for me, but when they don't, when there's a disconnect there, then you kind of just schedule and coordinate around them, and then build your schedule moving forward that way. This is part of the job. Sometimes it doesn't work the most efficient way, but you also can't leave somebody for 10 days just because they're a little bit further away than where you're normally covering. So just setting the expectation with the customer, letting them know what your current workload is, what the situation is. If they're, if they experience the hail or the catastrophe, they're aware of how busy it is. And kind of just being realistic and limiting yourself about how much you want to open yourself up to. Most companies will say, how many claims do you think you can handle? So be realistic with the amount, and be realistic about how much ground you can cover in a day. I'm sure everybody that covers their area is more aware of their regional situation than but I remember I didn't know Denver that well. So I was scheduling appointments like 15-30 minutes apart, and then driving like 40 minutes to the next appointment, and then going back to the area that I just came from. So, and these are all things that would happen because I didn't have somebody to schedule the appointment, or I would forget my schedule and answer the call and say, oh yeah, I can be there, I'm here, there. And then, so it was a little bit overwhelming. So just being able to handle all aspects of the claim from start to finish was a big challenge.
All right, Dan, as we close out the episode here, I want to give some appraisers out there who are just jumping in the industry. They're new. They want to be successful. They want to set themselves up for success. What would be something you want to close with that is some advice that you think is very valuable, that can be powerful to get off on the right foot?
I think you need to rise up to the challenge and put yourself in different positions, uncomfortable positions that you might not otherwise be in. Breaking into those networks is really how you're going to succeed and set yourself apart. And as you're doing that, ask for help. There are auditors that work for all these networks that are very well versed in just about every aspect of auto that you can imagine. Form a relationship with them. That's how you build trust. That's how you get in these rosters. That's how, being a familiar voice with a name, just forming that relationship with the staff really goes a long way.
That's great. It's really about that communication. So, well, Dan, it's been great having you on. Great hearing your story. And I'd like to end here with, how can someone get a hold of you if they're interested in working with you? What's the best way to get a hold of you and reach you?
Yeah, best way is usually email. I still work field. I do a lot of desks, so I'm in and out all day long, but I'm also in my inbox at all times. So give me a shout, Dan Amato, Amato 91 at gmail.com. Or if you need, 845-662-1850.
Awesome. And we'll put this at the bottom of the episode too, so anybody can see if you want to reach out to Dan. But Dan, it's been great having you on. It's great going through your story and how you started with ACD and how you've evolved out to your own business. And I think you've given some great advice to people jumping in the industry. So thanks so much, and glad to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ernie. Good luck to everyone out there.
You got it.
This has been Focus on Claims with Ernie Bray, President and CEO of ACD.